Welcome to the Sober Unicorn. We are a gay hosted, all-inclusive podcast about sobriety and addiction recovery for the LGBT plus community and all of our allies. I am your host, Holden, and thank you for joining us today. Hey, it's Holden, and I am an alcoholic. I hope everybody's doing well today. Today, I am being joined by Jennifer.
Hi, my name's Jennifer.
How are you doing today, Jennifer?
I'm doing very well. How are you?
Doing a fabulous. So, why don't you tell everybody, of course, your sobriety date, like how long you've been sober, and what your drug of choice was?
Uh, I had lots of drugs of choices, but I didn't come to the reality of that I was an alcoholic until I was drinking alcohol. My sobriety date is May 10th, and I'm about to celebrate 9 years of sobriety.
Hell yeah. And I'm gonna give everybody a little bit of backstory. So Jennifer and I actually met going on 9 years ago now, a little bit less than about 8.5 years. I just celebrated 5 months. And it's insane on when her and I met at a local like vape shop that she was working at. She was like right at her 5 months of sobriety as well. And she probably knew full on well that I was an alcoholic too throughout our 9 years of friendship. But never once did Jennifer ever like pass judgment on me. She was willing to go to a bar with me and just hang out. Hell, she served me fucking liquor at her house with her husband. So it just goes to show that people that aren't still in active addiction can be friends with somebody in recovery and not feel that judgment being passed. But I mean, it's good to have somebody that's close to a decade of friendship on this show and to kind of share everybody like our experiences as friends and your experience in sobriety. So I'm so happy you came on.
I'm so proud of you.
Thanks, babe.
You're doing an
So
amazing job with this podcast, and congratulations on your 5 months.
thank you so much. And 9 years is coming up, bitch. So so Jennifer, I know that like why don't you of course it's been 9 years. So I mean from what you remember, why don't you lead us up to the moment you realized, oh fuck, I need to get sober and like tell us how that felt.
So, when in my drinking days, I was heavily drinking because the infidelity that my husband was doing, and it got heavy. It got really crazy. I had a lot of things that was I was blaming myself for, and um, for months, my mom was telling me that I needed to get sober, and you know, my I need to take care of my kids, and of course, I was just too hurt and sad to deal with it, and I turned to alcohol. Uh, I would wake up with alcohol. I would start coffee with 2 shots of Jack, like it was no big deal. And unfortunately, there were times where I got really uh, I would hurt people. I would try to hurt people. I was definitely a raging alcoholic. Like, I tried to kill my husband. My children witnessed me chasing him around with a knife. Um, I broke his brother's window because he wasn't letting me in. I mean, it was just very terrible. And it was my birthday, and my mom threw me a little party. And of course, I had to ruin it because I was a fucking asshole. And the very next day, I bought this bottle and drank it. And my mom, we just moved into her new house, and my daughter needed to do homework. And I asked my mom to set up the computer, and my mom was busy doing other things, moving into her new beautiful house. And I was drinking a bottle that was under my car seat. I took my kids to go and get some Sonic, and I drank that whole bottle. Out of the 30 minutes that we were gone to get Sonic. My kids witnessed me drinking and driving. I came home and I lost my shit because my mom didn't connect the computer for my daughter to do her homework. The police were called. I was escorted off my mom's house, my mom's premises. And the next day, I tried to come home and pretend like nothing happened, and my mom wasn't letting me do that.
And I know that, as you said, I mean, it's funny how you said you were trying to make your mom hook up your computer because before this episode, you had your son hook up the Zoom. So you must not like computers very well.
I am not technical savvy whatsoever. I do feel like it takes over and it numbs us from nature,
Reality. Yeah,
reality.
no, 100%. So of course, like as you said, you drank the bottle, you came home to your mom's house, and she essentially would not let you see your kids.
No, she told me to get out.
So
She
was
told
that the turning point?
Absolutely. That day, she told me she wasn't allowing me to take my kids, and I wasn't allowed at her house anymore. That's the day I went to my first AA meeting. And ironically enough, the my first AA meeting, the guy who was, the chair, made me do the Serenity Prayer, and uh, right then and there, I knew that I was an alcoholic, and that is not the life that I deserve, nor do my children. And I knew that I was going to do it.
Yeah, so I know we've kind of talked over the phone multiple times that when we met, you were active in the program, the 12 steps, and you have essentially since then left the 12 steps, at least the program in itself. So even though you have removed yourself from the program, do you still utilize the tools that the program provided, or have you just pushed everything to the side?
No, I definitely use the program when it's necessary and needed. Sometimes I got to check myself before I sit here and try to check anybody else. Um, but yeah, I feel like the 12 steps definitely put myself in front of the mirror and made me take all the layers and acknowledge all the layers of bullshit for me, for other people. Um, and I'll use that stuff today. Absolutely.
Yeah, and I think it's nuts. Like how I mean, so when I was coming into that shop and you were of course fresh in recovery 4 months in, and I would shit talk you constantly being in recovery. Like looking back on that, it's like, of course, for one, that was very shitty of me to do. But being somebody fresh in recovery, how did you overcome the shit talk from people around you and stay persistent with your program?
Um, Really, it was you have to have a thick layer of skin, you know. Um, you can't sit here and try to get sober without at least growing that thick layer of skin. You got to, you definitely got to acknowledge your shittiness as a person. And I think, with my childhood and how I grew up, you put your big girl panties on and you deal with it. And so it's really not my place to sit here and have, your 2 cents is your 2 cents. And I hope that your 2 cents goes as far as it needs for you to have it go. But for me, like, your two
I'm
cents ain't paying my rent. So,
that is very true. And the fact of shit, look at me now, very involved in
right.
the program. So apparently I need to get paid a lesson.
And
So
honestly, it was that, your lesson was going to come when you were ready for it, just like mine was. Like, I was ready for it. I was drinking for fucking months on end. I never had a sober moment, you know. I was never able, and it was because I was scared. I don't want to feel hurt. I don't want to feel sad, you know. I don't want to sit here and question my worth. So,
Yeah, no, and the thing is too, I think it shows your character. The fact of when I called you and was like, I am going to my first meeting, that even though the shit that I said back in the day, like you showed nothing but support and you never been like, I told you so and anything like that. And so let's rewind and reverse this back to your family. So as you said, your kids witnessed a lot of shit. Your mother kicked you out of the house. Fuck, you chased your husband around with a knife. That is not something a sane and normal person would do, at any stretch. And I know when I met you that you were kind of going through a separation with your husband, and since then have reconciled that relationship. So take me through, like, with all this shit that you had put your family through in your addiction, how did you mend those relationships? And then from mending those relationships, how have they developed now that you're 9 years sober?
um, I definitely had to make my amends to a lot of people. And at that time, you know, when I was fresh in my recovery, me and my husband were not together uh, because he wasn't able to do what I wanted him to do, as to get sober with me. Um, and that was okay, you know, like it's okay. We could still co parent, whatever, whatever. I'm going to move on. You're going to move on. And then when I realized I'm sitting here and making my amends to people and asking people to forgive me for what I've done, because I've done some shitty things. I couldn't sit here and not forgive my husband for what he's done. You know, he's human and it was shitty. And so after about the first year of my sobriety, we started doing marriage counseling. And that was hard, you know. That is also another, let's take the layers of bullshit off and get to the real core of the problem. And with my kids, you know, uh, I want to say, I can't necessarily speak for them, but I know that they remember their childhood. And, uh, you know, me and my daughter have definitely talked about it. We've also gone to counseling for her childhood. My youngest son has yet to truly talk to me about it, but like he gives me little signs that, you know, he kind of remembers. And I know there's going to be a day where me and him have to take the layers of bullshit off and talk about it as well. But as of today, you know, we have a good relationship. I'm very honest with my children. Um, and I know they're honest with me, you know, like the last thing I want is a liar, and I don't like liars, so don't lie to me. And, you know, for my mom, it took a while for her to, you know, let her guard down with me getting sober. But today she wouldn't question it whatsoever. Uh, and I appreciate that. You know,
Yeah,
it's
I
taken.
mean, I've met your mom and she is a sweetheart. So it's crazy for me to think that back in your addiction days that she would have done that to you, because she seems like she would have been the most understanding and loving parent no matter the circumstance. And as you said, your son hasn't really came to you about it, but I think he was so young at the time that he's seen you evolve. So it's kind of like he knows that you knew you fucked up. So it's like, why bring up the past when the Jennifer that I know has been a very loving, considerate parent to her kids, very accepting to anything that they want to do and supporting of her children as a parent should be. So it's like, yes, there's probably trauma that he wants to uncover, but it's like, you know what? My mom turned her shit around, got sober, has been an incredible parent for 9 years now, or going on. So it's maybe it's one of those understandings that are kind of unspoken.
Well, I wouldn't say I'm an incredible parent. I just because I'm sober doesn't mean that I don't fuck up. I'll tell you that right now. But you know, just like every relationship, whether it being a, partnership or a mother and child, um, you just have to talk and seriously talk about your relationship and what, you have to compromise. And my children now are becoming in the teenage years, they're not like 8 anymore. They're like 20 and 18, and they're becoming at that age to where they're going to experiment and they're going to, have a drink. And I just, tell them to just be careful. I'm not going to sit here and be naive and think that you're not going to do shit. But first of all, please do not get behind a wheel. I don't care what time it is. Call me. I will come and get you no matter what. I'm not going to be mad at you. Just call me. Um,
And I think as a parent in recovery too, the kids know that you understand the severity of getting behind a wheel and drinking. So it's like, even though you're in recovery and they don't want to call you, be like, Mom, I'm shit faced. Please come and save me with your sober ass. But it's also where it's like, out of anybody in their life that is saying, you know what, you'll be okay. I'll come get you. We'll get you home in bed. It would be you. I mean, because many times that you were like that, you probably wished you had that somebody so you didn't have to drive your damn self. Um, so have you and her, I'm not going to say her husband's name. We'll call him David. So have you and David had a conversation and an amends with what he did in the past and with what you did with chasing him around with a fucking knife?
Absolutely. With his infidelity, uh, in my sobriety, like we definitely had to work on that a lot, and it took years. Like, um, it wasn't all sunshine and roses by any means, and but the fact that you know, we worked on it, and still to this day we're working on it. I mean, you got to work on a marriage. It's not nothing new about that, but um I'll say, you know, that he has my back, and we've definitely have ridden this roller coaster together, you know, and he takes care of me, and he apologizes, and
But
not in like, oh, I'm so sorry, but like more of, I'll, he just won't do it. He won't be looking at posts on Instagram of, just any way disrespectful to me.
some big
We,
booty hoes.
yeah, I'm the one looking at it now, being like, yeah, can you see that ass shake?
And how do you because I know when I was at your house a few months back that you served me tequila, uh Patron, and at this time I was still not in recovery, and you had, I guess, spilled a little bit on your hand. And I was like, girl, just lick it up. And you were like, you and your husband both, because it was his bottle, both looked at me like, bitch. Um, so with your husband that drinks, I mean, does it tempt you, especially the fact of he say, because of course you wash your hands, you did not lick it up, but he of course is say taking shots of tequila and kisses you, and or the smell on his breath. I mean, does that tempt you, or are you far enough in recovery that you would just understand he's not an alcoholic, that he's just an occasional drinker?
Um, at the beginning, we had to make I'm gonna call it a deal, but it wasn't necessarily like that. It was he had a 3 drink limit for me, and he followed that to a certain extent. Like there was times where we would be at a party and we're gonna be there for hours. The Mexican parties. Just kidding. um, and so he would have more than a few drinks, more than the 3 drink limit that uh, we discussed, and which was fine, you know. But then there's times where it's like, you know what? You're already fucking annoying me. Don't you dare have that other drink. But it was really more of like, whatever our energies and our vibes were that day, and
Yeah,
even
so it
he
didn't
can
have to do with the liquor.
no, and honestly, he'll go for days, weeks without having a drink, you know. He doesn't necessarily uh need it every day, which is amazing because he's married to me. And you would think that motherfucker needs a drink every day.
I mean, me dealing with you makes me want to drink. And I ain't
You
even
ain't
married to you.
lying.
So I know, as we pulled back earlier, that you are a part of the 12, well, we're a part of the 12-step program. What made you leave the program, and would you ever go back?
Um, I I don't know if I would ever go back. And it's not because I have respect for the 12 step and everything that they do and did for me. I mean, the purpose of the 12 steps was to not have me pick up a drink, and they did that. I can honestly go to a bar and not pick up a drink and not want to drink and feel comfortable in my skin of who I am today because of the 12 steps. When I was freshly in recovery, though, I had my sponsor, I did everything. Um, I also had a childhood friend uh, that, I thought was my best friend at the time. And she was definitely helping me uh, in my recovery. And I went every day, sometimes 2 meetings a day, nonstop. And I was, definitely speaking the word of the big book and my higher power and everything like that. And one day, my sponsor, we were at a meeting, and my sponsor, we were listening to someone's story, and it was not necessarily an AA story, it was an NA story. And she made the comment of, they shouldn't be at this meeting. And I was kind of taken back by that because, you know, as someone who's in recovery, first of all, I don't want to hear that, that someone's not welcome here. Because if I'm not mistaken, everyone should be welcome here. But secondly, like, I am just happy at the fact that instead of going and picking up whatever your drug of choice was, that you came here. And so that kind of turned me off on her and my uh her sponsoring me because I didn't necessarily want that kind of mindset. She was kind of also very much like I had to contact her constantly about like almost kind of like every life choice I was making to a certain extent. I mean, she wasn't as bad as some other people and their sponsors were, And I found myself, saying, if it's really not going to affect you, why do I have to inform you? You know? Um, and then also at that time, I was able to go back to my mother's house because there was a while I had nowhere to go and I was sleeping in my car. But she allowed me back into her house, and my kids wanted to hang out with me. Like, they were happy to see me. I was happy to see them. We were working on our relationships, and uh, she would be annoyed at the fact that I wasn't going to make a meeting. And I, you know, was like, I'm sitting here working an 8-hour job, and then I'm going to sit there and spend another hour in an AA meeting when I could go home and spend that hour with my children who finally want to hang out with me. Um, and I just, I want to hang out with my kids. That's the whole reason why I'm getting sober and, you know, trying to mend my relationships with them.
Yeah, so I mean, it seems like, unfortunately, I mean, that does happen in some AA rooms. I mean, it hasn't happened while I've been present, but there have been times where in other meetings I've heard that people that bring up NA, or and they're an addict, and they mention the word meth or heroin, that they're asked to leave. Um, I understand that there are NA meetings out there, but they may not have. There's fewer NA meetings than there are AA meetings, at least in my area. So it's like they may not have the car. They may not be able to drive all that way. And at the end of the day, most of the programs, NACA, overeaters, sex addicts, everything, we pretty much almost based it off of the same 12 steps.
Yeah,
Um, so they're an addict nonetheless, whether it's an alcohol, heroin, meth, you're still an addict. And so I agree with you. I don't think I think that person should be welcomed with open arms. Because we should never pass judgments. AA is all about love and tolerance, and I think so. And I find that many young people, especially your generation and younger, because you're part of the old crowd. And I'm kidding. Um, but your generation and younger are most of the time cross addicted, and so it's the really old generation that I'm not going to say speak for everybody, that I hear is the ones that are more offended by the mention of other narcotics. But like the younger people, like my 10 o'clock meeting I go to in the local area. I mean, there's people that were strictly heroin addicts. There's people that are mixtures, and we don't care because we're just there to help each other get sober and maintain sobriety. And it just sucks that your sponsor turns you off enough to the point where you don't want to go back. I don't think you should go back. I mean, that's a personal choice, I feel, but at least the one thing I could say, as you said, you do use the 12 steps in your day to day life. So the program teaches us to live. And so if you personally feel that you're living and the addiction and the mindset of the obsession of the liquor is gone and you're living, then why do you need to continue to go to a program that's teaching you to live when you're, bitch, you doing it?
right.
Um, and it's incredible that, like you said, your kids want to see you. And that's, as a parent, when you're mending those relationships and you're excited, your kids were young at that time. It's not like they're 18 years old and you're just getting out of an AA meeting and they're like, bitch, please. It's, they're young, they're so adolescent. And to see their faces light up with excitement for their mother is very enjoyable and pleasing, and probably major fucking heart melt.
Absolutely. I
So
mean,
it's crazy.
but also at a young age, their brains are still growing too. So I didn't want to not be there for a meeting. I want to choose them, and I chose my family. And, some people can be mad or offended, and I'm, I don't mean to offend anybody. I choose family.
Yeah, no, and I support that. I think but you, out of your entire time that I've known you, you've never shunned away from sharing with anybody that you're sober. And if any questions arise, that you answer them to most honesty. So I think the program step 12 is to carry the message. So I think you may not be carrying the message within a room, but throughout our entire friendship, you've you kind of been like trying to inch me to be like, bitch, you need to get sober. But you knew that the decision had to come on my own. And so when the decision finally came, you're like, oh my God, thank God, hold it, bitch. I've been waiting for this moment. But it finally was like, you still are carrying the message out there. You are still doing what your due diligence is as somebody in recovery. It may not be within four walls, but it is still in your day to day life.
Absolutely. I mean,
So,
I do tell everybody, I'll go to work and people will ask me like, let's go to the bar after work, and I'll be like, cool, I'm down. I'm just not drinking. And, some people will be like, really? Because I'm crazy. Like, let me tell you right now, I am crazy. But for, I could still go out and hang out at the bar and have a great time and not need a drink. And for some people, I make them uncomfortable because I can go to a bar and not have a drink and still have a great time. Shit, I'll be the life of the fucking party. I'll tell you that right.
I think it's crazy how I found recently that the moment I tell somebody that I'm sober or that they automatically have to justify their own drinking. Oh, well, I don't drink that much. I only drink on weekends. I'm like, bitch, I don't care. Like,
Right.
it's your decision on how much liquor you consume. I mean, and it's weird how not drinking, I mean, pull sobriety, like sober and recovery out of it, but just stating that I don't drink is so considered taboo.
Oh yeah, it's uncomfortable to a lot of people.
Yes, but I think it's like the moment I became sober, I noticed how many TV shows, commercials, billboards, I mean everything. Go to Kroger. I was mentioning in a previous episode. Go to Kroger, Albertsons, Walmart, whatever you have grocery store in your area. Um, you the moment you walk in, there's fucking stacks of beer everywhere throughout the store and caps of wine. I mean, society in itself, at least in America, because this is where I live, is so centered around booze.
Absolutely.
So I think a lot of alcoholism. I mean, don't get me wrong. Once we start, I think I've gone through it in different. The scientific aspects of it kicks in, but the the drive to the first drink initially when we're younger is burned and ingrained into us through TV. I think that the beer companies and liquor companies prey on people that will have that addiction because that's what fuels their jobs. But we'll digress because that's a whole another episode.
I say, it's actually a depressant, and I mean, they're making us depressed and then feeding us the depressant to make it even worse. So,
Yeah, because they show that drinking is a fun and great time, which I don't. I mean, don't get me wrong. I was a bar drinker, so I mean, I was surrounded by a lot of people and had a great time while getting fucked up. And then the next day was hours on end of regrets and just like, what am I doing to myself? But yet 3 hours later, I'm getting text messages, come to the bar. And I'm like, all right, bitch, I'll see you there. But so I think it's incredible on how your family relationships have improved tenfold. I mean, you just bought your first house.
yes, I did.
You and your husband are, I mean, seemingly happy. I mean, I was there, like, God, it's been like 8 months ago now. And he has so much love for you. It's insane. On no matter where you were at the house, he was just making sure you're okay and you were taken care of. And it's amazing to see that the love can overcome addiction. For your parent, your kids, your kids for shit. The love for your kids is what made you want to get sober. For one,
Absolutely.
fuck the husband at that time, and but over time you saw that it wasn't just your husband. It wasn't the infidelity because maybe if you were sober, the infidelity would have never happened. you were a crazy bitch that drove him to that, possibly. I mean, I can't speak for him. Um, but it's great to see that y'all have such a loving and caring relationship for each other and your kids, and are just building life, which and a sober life for you at least. And he drinks, but not a whole lot.
Yes. Um, you know what I learned about his infidelity is that it truly had nothing to do with me. And no matter how much I wanted to get back at him or get pissed off or use that as the excuse on why I drank, um, I know it sounds crazy, but today I have to thank him for that situation and, you know, the girl he did it with, because I today am a lot stronger because of that situation. And me and my husband have a better relationship because of that situation. Me and my children have a better relationship because of that situation. And I will, I'll never, I don't know how to say it correctly without sounding like an idiot, but I just appreciate the fact that they honestly they showed me who I am and who I want to be, and that I'm strong
Yeah, and
and
you're
I'm
better than being an addicted individual that is chasing her husband around with a knife. I mean, no
absolutely
matter how many times I hear that story, I mean, you told me that shit 9 years ago, and I was like, "Are you fucking kidding me?"
yes.
Um, so, I mean, is there anything before we end the episode? Is there anything that you would like to share with anybody listening?
Um, I want to share that, love yourself. That's one thing that I didn't do in my younger years was, I'm worth it. I can do whatever I put my mind to. And, you know, my heart is the only heart that I'm going to have for life. So that's one thing that I wish I would have learned at a younger age. So for anybody who's listening who's having, struggles or, an addiction, uh, love yourself. You deserve love and you
I,
deserve to be happy and healthy.
I like that. So, of course, of course, you're married to a man. So, I was asked this at the end. So, I'm assuming you're straight.
Yes.
Okay. So, what, being a gay hosted podcast, um, what, excuse me, what would you tell the LGBTQ individual that is still struggling right now with addiction?
Um, I'm sorry that people have hurt you. And you are enough. You deserve happiness just like everybody else, and I don't care what anyone fucking says.
Thank you again for listening to today's episode. Hit that follow button to be notified about new episodes every week. If you'd like to reach out to us, you can find us on Instagram at The Sober Unicorn Podcast or on our website at thesoberunicornpodcast.com. There you will find our episodes as well as our very own sober owned shop featuring products from small businesses that are sober owned. And remember everyone, don't be normal, be a unicorn, but better yet, be a sober unicorn.